At 5 a.m., my doorman called Mr. Whitmore. There's a problem. Your son's wife is here saying she's the new owner. I know most people would have panicked hearing that news, but I just smiled and said, let her in. After all, Raven had spent months convincing everyone I was a confused old fool who couldn't manage his own life. She'd stolen from me, poisoned my son against me, and now she was taking everything. But as I watched her through cameras she didn't know existed, directing movers to steal my furniture, my smile grew wider. She thought she was picking off some defenseless old man. She had no idea the trap I'd been setting for weeks. What I did next didn't just destroy her plans. It destroyed her life completely. Before I tell you how this trap unfolded, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, because what happened next will shock you. The phone rang at 5:15 a.m., cutting through the lake house silence like a knife. I'd been sleeping peacefully, but something in that ring told me this wasn't going to be just another quiet morning. Mr. Whitmore, sir, I'm sorry to wake you. Axel Stone's Brooklyn accent carried unusual tension. It's your daughter-in-law. She's here with a moving truck and 3 men. Says the apartment belongs to her now, has keys and everything. I should have panicked. Instead, satisfaction washed over me. The kind you feel when a chess opponent finally makes the move you've been waiting for. Does she now? I sat up fully alert. What did you tell her? Oh, said I'd need to call you first. She got heated talking about how you're too old to live alone, how the family's worried. The usual stuff. The usual stuff. Months of Raven's carefully crafted concerns about my age, my supposed inability to manage my own affairs. Axel, do exactly what I tell you. Let her up. Sir, are you sure? Absolutely sure, but make sure she signs the visitor log with her full name and ID. Those men too. I hung up and opened an app on my phone. 6 camera angles of my penthouse flickered to life. All empty, all waiting. Most people wouldn't suspect a man my age would know how to use such technology. The lobby camera showed Raven pacing near the elevator in workout clothes, hair pulled back, looking like she was running errands. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the sharp gestures when talking to her 3 companions. One carried empty boxes, another held paperwork, the third looked nervous. Smart man, he should be nervous. I watched the elevator climb. 3rd floor, 5th, 7th. 3 weeks ago, after that disastrous family meeting, I'd made a decision. Not the confused choice of a senile old man as Raven painted me, but the calculated move of someone who'd spent 40 years in consulting by always thinking 3 moves ahead. The elevator opened on my floor. Raven stepped out confidently, followed by the movers. She walked to my door like she owned it, which according to her she did. I watched her pull out a key from her purse. My old key, the one I'd deliberately left where she could find it 3 weeks ago. She slid it into the lock, turned it, and pushed the door open. The lights came on automatically. All 4 stepped into my living room, into the web I'd been weaving for weeks. I switched to the internal cameras, watching them spread out across my space. Raven pointed at my leather sofa, my dining table, giving instructions like a general commanding troops. Take the valuable pieces first. Her voice came through crystal clear on the audio feed. The old man's not coming back from where he's going. Where I'm going, I almost laughed. The only place I was going was to watch Justice finally catch up with her. One of the movers hesitated. Ma'am, you sure about this? Shouldn't we have paperwork? Raven waved dismissively. It's all legal, family business. Now move. I picked up my phone and called Axel back. Let her work, Axel. Don't interfere. Just make sure you have those signatures. But Mr. Whitmore, trust me on this one. I ended the call and settled back to watch the show. Every word, every action, every theft was being recorded in high definition, automatically uploading to the cloud and sending alerts to my attorney. Raven had no idea that her carefully planned heist was about to become the evidence that would destroy her. The memory struck me as I watched Raven through my cameras. 6 months ago, everything had seemed so hopeful. Dad, I've met someone special. Braxton's voice carried nervous excitement I hadn't heard in years. After Serena died 2 years ago, he'd avoided serious relationships entirely. Hearing that joy again made my heart lift. Her name's Raven. We've been together 3 months, and I'd love you to meet her. 3 months without telling me. But I pushed aside that small hurt. Bring her for dinner Saturday. That evening, Ophelia arrived first, arranging flowers in Serena's favorite vase. She'd been my wife's best friend, and had become family after we lost her. You nervous? She asked. Should I be? When Braxton brought Raven, I understood his attraction immediately. Stunning at 34, with dark hair and green eyes that seemed to catalog everything. Her black dress probably cost more than most monthly salaries. Mr. Whitmore, such an honor. Her handshake was firm, smile warm. Braxton talks about you constantly. During dinner, she was charming, asking about my consulting work, my years raising Braxton alone. But her questions kept circling back to practical matters. This penthouse must be quite a responsibility. All this space for one person. Do you ever think about downsizing? Not really. I've got everything I need here. But managing everything at your age must be challenging. The bill's maintenance, keeping track of details. Such gentle concern, but something felt calculated. Ophelia's fork paused mid-bite. I caught her eye, saw the warning there. Dad's sharper than men half his age? Braxton said proudly. You should see his investment portfolio. Investments. Raven leaned forward with sudden interest. How impressive. Quite a diverse portfolio. I imagine real estate, stocks, bonds. More questions followed, wrapped in admiration, but probing nonetheless. Financial advisors, estate planning, long-term care preferences. Each inquiry felt like gentle testing for weakness. After dinner, Raven insisted on making tea. Special blend, she explained, moving through my kitchen with startling familiarity. Chamomile, lavender, and other herbs, wonderful for relaxation. The tea tasted unusual, bitter beneath floral notes. Within 30 minutes, I felt lightheaded thoughts fuzzy. Not drunk exactly, but not myself. I need some air, I said, stepping onto the balcony. When they left, Ophelia offered to drive me home. You don't look right, Caleb. That tea hit you hard? In her car, she stayed quiet for blocks before speaking. Something's off about her. What do you mean? Those weren't getting to know you questions. Those were inventory questions. I wanted to dismiss her concerns to believe Braxton had found happiness. But Ophelia's words echoed as we drove through Seattle's night. Maybe she's just practical? Maybe? Ophelia pulled into her driveway, turned to face me. But practical women don't drug their boyfriend's father on first meetings. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to argue to defend the woman who'd made my son smile again. But the fog in my head, the calculated nature of her questions, the way she'd moved through my kitchen like she was measuring it for future use. You really think she drugged me? I think that woman sees dollar signs when she looks at you. And I think your son is too lonely and too trusting to notice. As I sat in Ophelia's passenger seat, still feeling the tea's effects, I realized she was right. Every instinct I'd developed in 40 years of business was screaming warnings I'd been too hopeful to hear. I should have trusted Ophelia's judgment from that very first night. Ophelia's warnings proved prophetic within weeks. Raven's presence expanded into every corner of my life. Phone calls came twice, weekly dripping with manufactured concern. Caleb, I worry about you on that 10th floor. What if you fell? What if there was an emergency? Worse was watching Braxton become her mouthpiece. Our monthly dinners transformed into intervention sessions. Dad, maybe Raven's right about the apartment being too much. All that space to maintain all those responsibilities. Since when do you worry about my responsibilities? He'd shift uncomfortably. I just think we should be practical about your future. Practical. Raven's favorite word delivered through my son's mouth. The suggestions escalated quickly. Financial advisors, estate planning, contingency plans for when I became unable to manage affairs. I could help coordinate everything Raven offered during one transparent visit. Take the burden off, Braxton. Burden. As if 40 years of successful money management had suddenly become too complex for my aging brain. Ophelia grew increasingly frustrated. She's conditioning you, Caleb. Classic manipulation. What if she genuinely cares? Caring people don't inventory assets during dinner. The wedding announcement came in March sudden as lightning. 3 months of dating, and they couldn't wait another day. Something small and intimate, Braxton explained. Small and intimate cost $8,000. As father of the groom, I was expected to contribute. Money saved for emergencies, for security, for peace of mind. But it was my son's wedding. The ceremony was beautiful, Raven, radiant in a dress worth more than my monthly expenses. I played the proud father, perfectly welcoming a new daughter to our family. Everything changed during the reception. I'd stepped outside for air when voices drifted from the garden pavilion. Raven's laugh followed by words that froze my blood. This marriage is the best investment I've ever made. Braxton's easy to handle and the old man's loaded. Penthouse worth $2.3 million plus the lake house plus investments. What if he won't give it up? Another woman's voice. I'm working on that. I already got Braxton convinced his father's too old to manage alone. 6 months, and the old man will be begging us to take over. 6 months. She'd allocated 6 months to strip away everything I'd built. I stood in shadows listening to my son's wife discuss my assets like estate sale items. Every concerned call, every gentle suggestion about my competence, calculated moves in a game I hadn't realized we were playing. When I returned to the reception, everything looked different. Raven's solicitous attention, Braxton's worried glances when I climbed stairs. Conversations that stopped when I approached. I'd been so focused on wanting Braxton happy that I'd missed the obvious truth: his happiness was built on lies. The revelation hit like physical pain. This woman had studied my son's vulnerabilities, his loneliness after losing Serena, his desire for companionship, his protective instincts toward his aging father. She'd weaponized his love against both of us. That night alone in my penthouse, I stared out at Seattle's glittering skyline and felt something crystallize inside me. Not just anger, though, that burned hot enough. Not just betrayal, though, that cut deep. Something colder, more focused. Determination. Raven thought she was playing chess with a confused old man. She had no idea she'd just declared war on someone who'd spent decades outmaneuvering opponents in boardrooms across the country. She wanted to play games with my future fine, but this time I'd be setting the rules. 2 weeks after watching my son marry a predator, I sat across from attorney Maxine Rothschild in her downtown Seattle office. She'd been handling my legal affairs for 15 years, and I'd never seen her look more serious. "Caleb, if this goes to court, your word alone won't be enough." Maxine's silver hair caught the afternoon light streaming through her office windows. "Raven will paint you as a confused elderly man making false accusations. We need ironclad evidence." "What kind of evidence?" "The kind that can't be dismissed or explained away. Audio-video documentation of her actual behavior when she thinks no one's watching." That's when she suggested the cameras. "Invisible surveillance throughout your apartment. High-definition video and audio motion-activated cloud storage. If she tries anything, we'll have it all recorded." The installation took 3 days. 6 cameras each, no bigger than a shirt button, strategically placed throughout my penthouse. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, study, hallway, entrance. The technician showed me how to monitor everything through an app on my phone. "Most folks your age struggle with this technology," he said, clearly impressed as I navigated the interface. "You're picking this up faster than clients half your age." If only he knew how motivated I was. Next came updating my will. Maxine drafted ironclad provisions protecting every asset. No property could be sold or transferred without my explicit written consent, witnessed by 2 independent parties. Any attempt to claim mental incompetence would require evaluation by 3 separate psychologists, not just one hand-picked expert. "We're making it legally impossible for her to steamroll you," Maxine explained. "Even if she somehow gets power of attorney, these clauses will tie her hands." The psychological evaluation with Dr. Sebastian Cross was almost insulting in its thoroughness. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, problem-solving exercises. 3 hours of proving I wasn't the senile old fool Raven wanted everyone to believe. "Mr. Whitmore, your cognitive function is exceptional for any age," Dr. Cross concluded. "Your memory, reasoning ability, and decision-making capacity are all well within normal ranges. I'll document everything comprehensively." The lock change was my favorite touch. I hired a locksmith but gave him specific instructions. Install new deadbolts, but leave the old locks in place non-functional. From outside it would look unchanged, but Raven's copied key would be useless. Then I had a new key made and left it somewhere she'd find it during one of her concerned visits. Right where she'd expect it to be. The final piece was the automated alert system. If anyone entered without my permission, the cameras would send immediate notifications to 3 places: my phone, Maxine's office, and Seattle Police Department's non-emergency line. "You're essentially setting a trap," Maxine observed during our final meeting. "That's exactly what I'm doing. And you're sure you want to go through with this? Once we start down this path, there's no going back. Your relationship with Braxton may never recover." I thought about my son, about the man I'd raised to be honest and kind, now twisted into someone who questioned his father's basic competence, because a beautiful woman whispered poison in his ear. "My relationship with Braxton is already damaged," I said. "At least this way, maybe someday he'll understand why." 3 weeks after the wedding, every system was in place. Cameras recording alerts, armed legal documents, filed psychological evaluation completed. I'd transformed my penthouse into a sophisticated surveillance operation that would make the FBI proud. All I had to do was wait for Raven to make her move. I retreated to the lake house ostensibly for some peaceful reflection after the wedding excitement. Really, I wanted to be somewhere safe when she finally showed her true colors. From my lakeside windows, I could monitor every angle of my Seattle apartment through my phone. Waiting, watching, ready. I didn't have to wait long. The alert came Tuesday afternoon while I read on the lake house deck. My phone buzzed. Motion detected in living room. There she was on my screen. Raven alone in my penthouse, moving with the confidence of someone who belonged there. She went straight to my desk, pulling out drawers with methodical precision. Financial statements, investment portfolios, insurance documents. Each paper got photographed with her phone, creating her private inventory of my assets. The violation felt physical, watching this woman catalog my life's work like garage sale items. Next, the filing cabinet. Estate planning and property deeds folders held her attention longest. She photographed the lake house deed from 3 angles, memorizing every detail. Then she entered my bedroom. I gripped my phone tighter as she opened Serena's jewelry box, untouched for 2 years, exactly as my wife had left it. Raven's hands moved through the pieces like she was shopping, selecting what looked most valuable. When she slipped Serena's wedding ring into her pocket, something cold settled in my chest. This wasn't just theft. This was desecration. But the real revelation came with her phone call. Standing in my living room, she dialed and waited. When they answered, her voice carried casual confidence. "I'm inside now. The old fool's at his lake house won't be back for days." She paused, listening, got photos of everything. Bank statements, investments, property deeds. He's worth way more than we thought. Penthouse alone, $2.3 million. Plus that waterfront place, another $800,000. Another pause. The nursing home plan's perfect. Found Sunset Manor, $9,000 monthly. With his assets, we can keep him there for years while liquidating everything else. Liquidating, like I was a business being dissolved. Timeline's good. I'll have Braxton sign power of attorney papers within the month. Once we have legal control, the old man can't stop anything. The voice on the other end made her laugh. Braxton, he'll go along once it's done. Too guilty about his mother's death to question anything about taking care of Dad. If he gets difficult, it'll be too late to matter. She hung up and continued her systematic theft, pocketing more of Serena's jewelry and my father's gold watch. I sat watching this woman dismantle my life through a phone screen, feeling something shift inside me. The anger burned hot and righteous, but underneath something else grew. Satisfaction. Every word was being recorded in high definition. Every theft documented from multiple angles. Every casual revelation about nursing homes and asset liquidation was now permanent evidence in the cloud. Raven thought she was operating in secret, but she was performing for prosecutors. When she left, I forwarded everything to Maxine. "We have her." Her response came immediately. "Better than we hoped. She confessed to conspiracy, elder abuse, and theft. We own her now." But watching my empty apartment through the cameras, I knew Raven wasn't finished. People like her didn't stop when winning. They got greedier, more reckless. Her next move would be her biggest mistake. The call came 3 days after I'd watched Raven rob me blind. Braxton's voice carried manufactured urgency. "Dad, we need to talk. Family meeting tonight at my place. It's important." "What's this about?" "Just please come. 7 o'clock. I knew exactly what this was about. When I arrived at Braxton's suburban home, the living room felt like a courtroom. Raven sat center stage, flanked by 2 people. I didn't recognize a man in his 30s who shared her sharp features, and a woman about Raven's age with calculating eyes. "Dad, this is Raven's brother Marcus and her friend Jennifer," Braxton said, avoiding my gaze. "They wanted to meet you. Witnesses. She'd brought witnesses. Mr. Whitmore, thank you for coming." Raven's voice dripped false concern. "We're all here because we care about you." "Are we? We've been worried." Marcus jumped in, reading from what sounded like a rehearsed script. "Braxton's told us about your episodes. The confusion, the forgetfulness." "What episodes?" Jennifer leaned forward with practiced sympathy. "It's nothing to be ashamed of. My grandmother went through the same thing. Started with little things, forgetting conversations, getting dates mixed up. I looked at my son. Braxton, what have you told them?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, you have been forgetting things. Last week you called me thinking it was Thursday when it was Sunday. A lie. I'd never made such a call." Raven produced a folder, thick with documents. "We've consulted with an elder care attorney. This is a voluntary guardianship agreement. It just means Braxton and I can help manage your affairs, pay your bills, make sure you're safe." "Voluntary?" "Of course. We're not trying to take anything from you. We just want to make sure you're protected." I opened the folder, scanning legal language that would strip away every right I possessed. And if I don't sign, the mask slipped slightly. Then we'll have to petition the court for an involuntary evaluation. These people, she gestured to her fake witnesses, will testify about your declining mental state. A judge will order psychological testing, and when that shows you're incompetent, you'll get guardianship anyway. We're trying to do this the easy way, Dad. Braxton's voice cracked with guilt. He didn't even understand. I closed the folder and looked around the room. Before I sign anything, I'd like you all to hear something. I pulled out my phone and opened the audio file from Tuesday afternoon. Raven's voice filled the room, crystal clear and damning. I'm inside now. The old fool's at his lake house won't be back for days. The color drained from Raven's face. Got photos of everything. He's worth way more than we thought. Penthouse alone, $2.3 million. Marcus and Jennifer exchanged panicked glances. Timeline's good. I'll have Braxton sign power of attorney papers within the month. Once we have legal control, the old man can't stop anything. I stopped the recording. The silence stretched like a held breath. Dad, Braxton's voice was barely a whisper. What is this? This is your wife discussing how she's going to steal everything I own and put me in a nursing home. I looked directly at Raven. While wearing my dead wife's wedding ring, Raven's composure finally cracked. You can't prove anything. That recording's illegal. You can't use surveillance in your own home without... Actually, I can. Washington's a one-party consent state, and it's my property. I stood up. But thank you for confirming it's your voice. Marcus bolted for the door. Jennifer followed. Even fake witnesses knew when to abandon ship. This isn't over, Raven hissed. You think you're so smart, but I'll find another way. There are other options for dealing with stubborn old men. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Braxton sat frozen, staring at his wife, like he'd never seen her before. Raven, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't... I did it for us, she snapped. He's old Braxton. He's going to die anyway. Why should we struggle when all that money is just sitting there? My son's face crumpled. In that moment, I watched him realize he'd married a stranger. I walked to the door, then turned back. Son, when you're ready to talk, really talk, you know where to find me. 3 days later, she made her most desperate move. And that brings us back to this morning. 5 a.m., my phone ringing with Axel's urgent voice, watching through cameras as Raven's desperation reached its peak. The satisfaction of watching a perfect trap spring never gets old. From my lake house, I observed Raven orchestrate what she believed was the final act of her con. She moved through my apartment with the confidence of someone who thought she'd already won. Start with the expensive pieces, she commanded her crew. Leather sofa dining set that antique desk. The family's relocating the old man to assisted living today. Assisted living. Her lies had evolved. One mover hesitated, studying the paperwork she'd thrust at him. These documents look... All right, look, I'm paying double your rate. Raven cut him off. My father-in-law has advanced dementia. The family's handling this transition professionally. Dementia. I was sharper than people half my age, but in Raven's version of reality, I was a drooling invalid. The youngest mover shook his head. Something's not right here. I'm out. He left smart enough to trust his instincts. The remaining two began loading furniture with visible reluctance, while Raven made another call. Everything's proceeding perfectly. Should be finished within hours. She paused, listening, the target still at his lake property, completely unaware. By the time he discovers anything, we'll have liquidated the assets and disappeared. Target. She'd reduced me to a military objective. Braxton. He'll adapt. He's too emotionally dependent to cause real problems. My son dismissed as easily as furniture. Then I heard them sirens growing louder through my apartment's audio feed. Raven's face went ashen as she looked out the window. This can't be happening. But it was happening exactly as I'd planned when I told Axel to let her up hours earlier. My hallway cameras showed 4 officers approaching with professional calm. The automated alert system had worked flawlessly. Seattle police hands visible, nobody moves. The movers immediately complied, one actually sighing with relief. Raven bolted toward the balcony, but Officer Martinez blocked her path with practiced efficiency. Ma'am, you're under arrest for breaking and entering. This is my property. I have legal authority. Mr. Caleb Whitmore filed complaints supported by video evidence. You have the right to remain silent. As Miranda rights filled my speakers, the movers explained their situation to other officers. Hired through Craigslist, paid cash, told it was a family emergency. They'd suspected fraud but needed work. Through my phone, I watched them place Raven in the patrol car. Even cuffed, she continued screaming about senile old men and family rights. The officers methodically photographed everything, collected fake documents, took statements. Professional justice unfolding exactly as Maxine had predicted. My phone buzzed with her text, "Saw the news alert. Satisfying." I replied, "It's a good start." Because this wasn't the finale. The real performance would happen in court. 6 months later, Judge Serafina Vale's courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Word had spread about the case elderly man, outsmarts gold digging, daughter-in-law in Seattle's legal community had turned out to watch. I sat in the front row behind the prosecution table watching Raven at the defendant's desk. Gone was the polished woman who'd charmed my son. Prison orange didn't suit her. The state charges Raven Whitmore with breaking and entering grand theft fraud conspiracy to commit elder abuse and criminal intimidation, the prosecutor announced. Her defense attorney, a young man who looked like he'd drawn the short straw, stood nervously. "Your Honor, my client was acting out of genuine concern for her father-in-law's welfare." The evidence presentation took 3 hours. Every surveillance video, every audio recording, every stolen piece of jewelry displayed for the jury. Watching 12 strangers see Raven's true nature unfold felt like vindication in slow motion. Dr. Sebastian Cross took the stand with professional authority. Mr. Whitmore underwent comprehensive cognitive evaluation. His memory, reasoning ability, and decision-making capacity all test well above average for any age group. In your expert opinion, Doctor, does Mr. Whitmore show any signs of dementia or mental incompetence? None whatsoever. He demonstrates exceptional mental acuity. Raven's lawyer tried desperately during cross-examination. But doctor, isn't it possible for elderly individuals to have lucid moments between episodes of confusion? Not in this case. Mr. Whitmore's test results show consistent, sustained cognitive function over multiple sessions. When they called me to testify, the courtroom fell silent. I'd prepared for this moment for months, but standing before that jury, I felt the weight of everything Raven had tried to steal. Not just money, but dignity, autonomy, the right to live my own life. "Mr. Whitmore," the prosecutor began, "can you tell us why you installed surveillance cameras in your home?" Because I realized someone was systematically trying to make me doubt my own competence. Someone was poisoning my relationship with my son, questioning my ability to manage my own affairs, all while planning to rob me blind. How did that make you feel? I looked directly at Raven, angry, but more than that, determined. I've spent 40 years building a successful business by outthinking my competition. I wasn't about to let a con artist destroy everything I'd worked for. The defense tried to paint me as a paranoid old man, but the evidence spoke louder than their arguments. Then came Braxton's testimony. My son looked like he'd aged 5 years and 6 months. When he took the oath, his hand shook. "Mr. Whitmore, what was your relationship with the defendant?" "She's my wife. Was my wife." His voice cracked. "I thought I loved her." "Did you know about her plans regarding your father's assets?" Braxton's shoulders sagged. "No. She convinced me Dad was declining mentally, that we needed to help him. I believed her because I wanted to believe someone cared about him as much as I did." "Do you believe that now?" "No." He looked at me across the courtroom, eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry, Dad. I should have trusted you." The jury deliberated for exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The foreman stood. "We have your honor. On all counts, we find the defendant guilty." Raven's scream echoed off the courtroom walls. Her lawyer had to restrain her as she lunged toward the jury box. Judge Vale's sentence was swift: 7 years in state prison, full restitution for stolen items, and a permanent restraining order preventing any contact with me. As they led Raven away in shackles, she turned back one final time. "You'll die alone, old man. Your own son will never forgive you." But Braxton was already walking toward me, tears streaming down his face. Outside on the courthouse steps, reporters shouted questions, but I barely heard them. The Seattle sky was clear for the first time in months, and I felt something I hadn't experienced since this nightmare began. Peace. 1 year later, sitting in my new apartment, smaller, cozier, 5 minutes from Ophelia's place, I reflect on everything that brought me here. The move was intentional. After 40 years in that penthouse, I needed somewhere without ghosts. This place has morning sunlight and feels like home in ways the old one never did after Serena died. Braxton visits every Sunday now. 8 months of therapy helped him work through what his counselor calls manipulation trauma. We're rebuilding trust, slowly, carefully. "I keep wondering what signs I missed," he told me recently. "Sun predators study our vulnerabilities. She weaponized your loneliness after your mother died. The support group I started meets Tuesdays at the community center. 12 elderly adults surviving financial abuse, mostly from family. The stories are heartbreakingly similar relatives questioning mental capacity, demanding account access, hiding assets. Here's what I've learned. Age doesn't make you weak. 65 years of living teaches you things no textbook can. Trust those instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Don't be ashamed to protect yourself, even from family. Love doesn't require becoming a victim. You can care about someone while refusing to let them destroy you. Keep friends like Ophelia close. She saw through Raven immediately while I made excuses. Sometimes outsiders see what family members miss. Most importantly, you're never too old to fight for what's right. Society wants us believing aging means helplessness, that we should surrender independence to more capable hands. That's garbage. I was 65 when I outmaneuvered a woman half my age who thought she could outsmart me. Experience beats youth when experience comes with wisdom. But here's my warning. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're being robbed to take action. If someone's suddenly interested in your finances, asking about your will, suggesting you're too old to manage affairs, pay attention. These aren't caring gestures. They're reconnaissance missions. If you feel dizzy after visiting relatives, if you're forgetting conversations, if documents go missing, investigate immediately. Trust is beautiful, but verification is survival. Set boundaries early. Document your competence legally. Keep important papers secure. Have trusted friends who know your real mental state, not just family who might benefit from declaring you incompetent. The legal system protects you only if you provide tools, evidence, documentation, witnesses. To everyone listening, check on elderly people in your life to support them, not control them. Listen to their concerns without dismissing them as paranoia. To my fellow seniors, your voice matters. Your judgment matters. Your right to control your life doesn't expire at 65 or 95. Document everything. In today's world, your phone is your best defense. Screenshots, recordings, photos, evidence protects you when words aren't enough. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more stories about resilience, dignity, and refusing to be anyone's victim. Remember, age brings experience, not weakness. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself without apology. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is show them that choices have consequences, even when that someone is family. Looking back at my journey, I realized this true story isn't just about outsmarting a con artist. It's about rediscovering the strength God gave us no matter our age. When I felt most vulnerable, most betrayed by someone I'd welcomed into my family, I found something I'd almost forgotten. The warrior spirit that built my business, raised my son, and survived losing Serena. These grandpa stories we share aren't just entertainment. They're blueprints for survival maps through territories our children haven't yet explored. My true story taught me that wisdom isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about recognizing patterns, preparing for battles, and knowing when to fight back with everything you've got. The hardest lesson. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting that love and boundaries must coexist. I loved my son enough to risk his anger. I loved myself enough to refuse becoming a victim. God doesn't ask us to be doormats. He asks us to be wise as serpents, gentle as doves. Every surveillance camera I installed, every legal document I filed, every moment I chose strategy over emotion, these weren't acts of paranoia. They were acts of faith. Faith that justice exists, that truth matters, that even at 65, I deserve to control my own destiny. The real victory wasn't Raven's prison sentence. It was watching Braxton realize that strength and love aren't opposites, they're partners. It was building something meaningful from Betrayal's Ashes, a support group that's helped dozens of seniors reclaim their power. These grandpa stories matter because they prove something society tries to deny. Age brings expertise, not expiration dates. Every gray hair represents a lesson learned, every wrinkle a problem solved. We're not burdens waiting to happen, we're libraries of hard-won knowledge. God blessed me with enough time to share this true story, to warn others to transform pain into purpose. If my experience saves even one person from Raven's kind of predator, then every sleepless night, every family argument, every moment of doubt was worth it. Your story matters too. Your voice deserves to be heard. Your experiences could be someone else's salvation. If this resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me about the wise elders in your life. Subscribe to this channel because our stories are how we protect each other across generations. Remember, God gave you a voice for a reason. Use it. They skipped their mother's funeral. My son was gambling in Vegas. My daughter said her schedule was full. So I buried my wife alone. And while the casket lowered, I decided to teach my children the most expensive lesson of their lives. You think you know betrayal. Wait till you hear how this old man turned grief into justice. Stick around and tell me in the comments, what would you have done? My name is Brian Carter. I'm 74 years old, a retired mechanic and Vietnam veteran living in small-town Ohio. For 47 years, I'd been married to Kate, the love of my life and mother of our 2 children. Eric, 45, a lawyer in Columbus, and Jessica, 42, a real estate agent in Toledo. We also have a grandson, Tyler, 22, who's the only one who still visits without needing something. I built our house with my own hands in 1976, raised my family with the values my generation learned the hard way. Work hard, save money, and family comes first. I thought I'd taught my children those same values. I was wrong. It started at 6 in the morning in that sterile hospital room where Kate had spent her final weeks. I'd been holding her hand all night, watching her chest rise and fall, with increasing difficulty. When her breathing finally stopped, the silence felt louder than any sound I'd ever heard. 47 years of marriage ended with a whisper. I sat there for 20 minutes before the nurse gently suggested I make the necessary calls. The first call should have been the easiest, to Eric. It went straight to voicemail. Eric, it's Dad. Your mother passed this morning. Please call me back. The second call to Jessica also hit voicemail. Jessica, honey, it's your father. Your mom is gone. I need you to call me as soon as you get this. By 8:30 in the morning, I was sitting in my truck in the hospital parking lot, waiting for my phone to ring. It didn't. The funeral director was kind but efficient. $9,500 later, I'd planned my wife's entire funeral service alone. Every decision, the casket, the flowers, the music Kate loved, fell to me. At 2 in the afternoon, my phone finally buzzed with a text from Eric. Dad's so sorry about Mom. I'm at Jake's bachelor party in Vegas. We've had this planned for months, and I'm the best man. Can't bail on the guys now, plus I already lost $3,000 on blackjack. Need to win it back before Stephanie finds out. We'll do something nice for Mom when I get back Sunday. I read the message twice, certain I'd misunderstood. My wife of 47 years was dead, and my son was worried about disappointing his drinking buddies and covering up gambling losses. 15 minutes later, Jessica called, her voice bright and cheerful. Daddy, I'm devastated about Mom, but I have my nail appointment at 2:30 and then Brittany's baby shower at 4. You know how crazy Brittany gets when people don't show up. Plus, I bought this adorable $200 outfit specifically for today. Can we maybe do the funeral thing tomorrow? Or next weekend when I'm free? Jessica, your mother died this morning. The funeral is today. I know, Daddy, but I can't just cancel everything. My nails look terrible, and Brittany will literally kill me if I miss her shower. Maybe you could ask the funeral home to reschedule. I'm sure they're flexible. I hung up. For the first time in my life, I hung up on my daughter. At 4 in the afternoon, I sat in the front pew of St. Mary's Church. Tyler sat beside me, his young face etched with genuine grief. Frank Sullivan, my neighbor and fellow Vietnam veteran, occupied the pew behind us. 6 other neighbors filled scattered seats. She waited for you. I whispered to the empty chairs where my children should have been sitting. 47 years of marriage, and she waited? Tyler squeezed my shoulder. Grandpa, I'm here. Grandma knew I loved her. Frank leaned forward. Brian, a man's children should be here. This ain't right. As they lowered Kate's casket into the ground, I realized something had shifted inside me. For 47 years, I'd been Brian Carter, devoted husband and father. But standing there in that August heat, watching my wife disappear into the earth, while my son gambled in Vegas and my daughter worried about her manicure, I became someone else entirely. That night I sat at my kitchen table, staring at Kate's photo from our wedding day. Her smile seemed to be asking me a question I wasn't ready to answer yet, but I would be soon. 2 weeks after Kate's funeral, I found myself in what used to be our garage, now converted into my home office, where I kept our financial records. The August heat made the small space stifling, but I had work to do. Estate settlement doesn't wait for grief to subside. I'd been putting off this task, but Kate's affairs needed settling. Insurance companies wanted death certificates. Banks needed account closures. The mundane bureaucracy of death stretched before me like an endless paper trail. I started with Kate's filing system. She'd always been meticulous about our finances. Bank statements dating back years neatly organized in manila folders, tax returns, investment records, insurance policies. Everything a lifetime of careful money management produces. That's when I found the first folder labeled Family Loans. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside, Kate had documented every dollar we'd given our children over the past decade. Her neat handwriting recorded dates, amounts, reasons. Eric Cuss, business startup, $25,000, March 15th, 2015. Below it in red ink, repayment promised within 2 years, still outstanding. I kept reading. Another entry, Eric Expansion Capital, $30,000, June 10th, 2018. Same red notation about non-repayment. By 10:30 that morning, I'd tallied $75,000 given to Eric over 6 years. Not one penny repaid. Jessica's folder was equally damning. $45,000 for various emergencies and lifestyle expenses. New car down payment, home renovations, debt consolidation, private school tuition for her daughters. Each entry marked temporary loan in Kate's careful script. Each one unpaid. I sat back in my chair, staring at the numbers. $120,000 to our 2 children, plus another $60,000 in smaller amounts over the years. Graduation gifts that became loans. Christmas money that never came back. Vacation funding that turned permanent. $180,000 gone. I don't know how many fathers like me have trusted their children so blindly. Have any of you ever felt like a fool for giving away too much? Please share with me in the comments below. The irony wasn't lost on me. Today was my 75th birthday, and I was discovering just how thoroughly my children had been bleeding me dry. 75 years old today, 47 years married, buried my wife alone, and apparently I'd been funding their lifestyles while they couldn't be bothered to show up for their mother's funeral. The afternoon passed in silence. No birthday calls, no cards, no acknowledgement that I'd reached another milestone without my partner of nearly 5 decades. At 6 that evening, my phone finally rang. Eric. Happy birthday, Dad. Sorry I'm calling late. Crazy day at the office. Hey, any word on Mom's life insurance? I know this sounds terrible, but Stephanie and I are looking at a bigger house, and we could really use some help with the down payment. I stared at Kate's folder in front of me. Eric, according to your mother's records, we've given you $75,000 over the years. Not $1 repaid. Silence. Then, Dad, those weren't loans. Those were investments. Family helping family. Besides, I know this is hard, but we need to be practical about Mom's assets. She would have wanted us to use them wisely. Practical. Like missing your mother's funeral was practical. Dad, don't be like that. You know I had obligations. Look, can we talk about the insurance money? I really need to know where we stand financially. I hung up. 90 minutes later, Jessica texted, Happy birthday, Daddy. Hope you're doing okay. Quick question. Any chance I could get Mom's jewelry appraised? The girls are getting older, and I want to make sure they get equal shares. Also, do you know if there's any cash from her accounts? I'm having some unexpected expenses. I turned off my phone and pulled out a legal pad. At the top I wrote, Every loan, every broken promise. Then I started writing. Eric, Vegas bachelor party instead of funeral. Jessica, nail appointment and baby shower instead of funeral. Eric, $75,000 zero repaid. Jessica, $45,000 zero repaid. The list grew longer as memories surfaced. Missed birthdays, forgotten anniversaries, holidays spent alone while they were too busy with their own families. Phone calls that only came when they needed money. By the time I finished, I had filled 3 pages. 3 pages of evidence that my children saw me as nothing more than a bank account with a heartbeat. I closed the legal pad and looked at Kate's photo on my desk. Kate, I whispered, I think it's time I stopped being practical their way and started being practical mine. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt since Kate's diagnosis. For the first time in months, I had a mission. In the Army, we called it reconnaissance. Know your enemy before you engage. My children had been treating me like a fool for 10 years. Time to show them what this old soldier still remembered about strategy. I cleared my kitchen table and spread out every financial document Kate had kept. Then I opened my laptop. Tyler had taught me to use spreadsheets last Christmas, and began entering data with the same methodical precision I'd once used to inventory equipment in Vietnam. Eric, $25,000 for startup, never repaid. $30,000 for expansion, never repaid. $20,000 for emergency, never repaid. Total $75,000 over 6 years. Jessica, $20,000 for home renovation, never repaid. $15,000 for car payments, never repaid. $10,000 for various crises, never repaid. Total $45,000 over 7 years. Miscellaneous family loans, $60,000. Grand total, $180,000. Gone forever. At 10 that morning, I called Thomas Fields, the attorney who'd handled our wills 20 years ago. Brian, I was sorry to hear about Kate. How are you holding up? Tom, I need to make some changes to my will. Brian, I can see you Thursday at 2 p.m. Bring all relevant documents. I'll bring everything. That afternoon, Tyler knocked on my back door. My grandson had always been different from his parents. He actually showed up when he said he would. Hey, Grandpa. Thought I'd stop by, see how you're doing. He noticed my leaky faucet immediately. Want me to fix that for you? While Tyler worked under the sink, we talked. He told me about his classes, his part-time job, his plans after graduation. Not once did he ask for money or mention what he might inherit someday. Grandpa, you seem different since Grandma died. You okay? I poured us both coffee and made a decision. Tyler, I want to show you something. I led him to the kitchen table where my spreadsheet was still open. His eyes widened as he scanned the numbers. Grandpa, that's a lot of money. Did they ever pay any back? Not a dime, Tyler. Not one dime in 10 years. Tyler sat back in his chair, processing what he was seeing. And they didn't come to Grandma's funeral because of a bachelor party and a nail appointment. That's right. That's not right, Grandpa. That's not family. For the first time since Kate's death, I smiled. Really smiled. No, it's not. But you are. That evening after Tyler left, I spent 3 hours researching Ohio inheritance law. I learned about probate procedures, witness requirements, and contestation periods. I studied precedents for disinheritance and the legal grounds needed to make changes stick. Kate had always handled our legal affairs, but I wasn't helpless. 40 years as a mechanic teaches you to read technical documents. Military service teaches you to plan operations. I printed out relevant statutes and case law organizing everything in manila folders. By midnight, I had a complete battle plan. The next morning, Tyler called. Grandpa, I've been thinking about yesterday. Are you going to do something about it? Some battles you have to fight alone, Tyler. But this one's for your grandmother's memory. You'll see, Tyler. But I want you to know, whatever happens with your father and aunt, you've already proven you understand what family really means. I picked up my phone and confirmed my appointment with Thomas Fields. Thursday at 2 p.m., time to execute the mission. Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock, I walked into Thomas Fields' law office carrying a banker's box filled with 40 years of financial documentation. The office sat on the courthouse square in a brick building that had housed lawyers since before I was born. Mrs. Patterson Thomas's secretary greeted me with the kind of professional sympathy reserved for widowers settling estates. Mr. Carter Thomas is ready for you. Can I get you some coffee? No, thank you, ma'am. I'm here on business. Thomas Fields had aged well in the 20 years since he'd drafted our original wills. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, the kind of attorney who'd built his practice on handshake deals and ironclad contracts. Brian, good to see you. Though I wish it were under better circumstances. He gestured to the chair across from his mahogany desk. Let's talk about what you need. I set the box on his desk. Tom, I need to change my will. Completely. Thomas pulled out a thick folder. Let me review your current documents first. He opened to the first page. Right now, you have Eric and Jessica as equal beneficiaries of your estate, with Tyler receiving a small educational fund. Standard family arrangement. That was before I discovered what kind of family I actually have. I began removing documents from my box, bank statements dating back 10 years, canceled checks made out to Eric and Jessica, loan agreements that were never honored, promissory notes that became permanent gifts. Tom, over the past decade, my children have taken $180,000 from me. Not borrowed, taken. Not one penny ever repaid. Thomas examined the papers, his expression growing more serious with each document. Brian, this is extensive. You've documented everything. Military training. Always keep records. I spread the evidence across his desk like battle plans. Eric took $75,000 for various business ventures. Jessica took $45,000 for emergencies and lifestyle expenses. Another $60,000 went to miscellaneous family loans that were never repaid. When I looked at those numbers again, $180,000, I wondered how many other fathers like me had been exploited this way without ever realizing it. If you have a similar story, don't hide it. Please share it with us in the comments. Thomas leaned back in his chair, and they didn't attend Kate's funeral. Eric was at a bachelor party in Vegas. Jessica had a nail appointment and a baby shower. Brian, this is a significant change you're proposing. Are you certain family will contests can get ugly? Tom, I've got 40 years of canceled checks. They took $180,000 and couldn't show up for their mother's funeral. How much more evidence do I need? Thomas nodded slowly. In that case, we'll make this ironclad. Your military service records will help establish mental competency. Your documentation proves a pattern of financial exploitation. What exactly do you want to do? Remove Eric and Jessica entirely. Everything goes to Tyler, your grandson. He's the only one who sees me as family, not a bank account. He's the only one who showed up when it mattered. Thomas pulled out a legal pad and began writing. Ohio law requires specific procedures for will changes this significant. We'll need 2 witnesses who aren't beneficiaries. Notarization is mandatory. And we're required to notify the previous beneficiaries within 30 days. How long will this take? 2 weeks to draft the new documents properly. Then we'll schedule a witness ceremony. After that, there's a 30-day notification period, during which Eric and Jessica can contest if they choose. Will they be able to overturn it? Not with this documentation. Your evidence of financial exploitation combined with their absence at Kate's funeral creates a compelling case for disinheritance. Plus, your military service establishes a pattern of sound decision-making. I felt something I hadn't experienced since Kate's diagnosis control. For the first time in months, I was the one making decisions that mattered. Tom, let's do this, right? I want every I dotted and every T crossed. Thomas closed the folder and looked at me seriously. Brian, once we notify Eric and Jessica, there's no going back. They'll know exactly what you're doing. Good. It's time they learned what consequences look like. 2 weeks later, I sat in Thomas Field's conference room at 10 in the morning, surrounded by the legal machinery that would change my family forever. The new will lay before me, 23 pages of precise legal language that would strip Eric and Jessica of everything they'd expected to inherit. Frank Sullivan sat to my right, uncomfortable in his best suit. My neighbor, Mrs. Dorothy Chen, sat across from us, her hands folded primly in her lap. Both had agreed to serve as witnesses, though neither fully understood what they were witnessing. Brian Thomas said formally, "This document revokes all previous wills and codicils. It names Tyler Carter as your sole beneficiary, with the exception of small charitable donations. Do you understand the contents of this will?" "I do." "Are you signing this of your own free will without coercion or undue influence?" "I am." I picked up the pen and signed my name with the same steady hand that had signed military orders in Vietnam. Brian James Carter, the signature that would protect everything Kate and I had built from the children who saw us as nothing more than a retirement fund. Frank and Mrs. Chen signed as witnesses their signatures, making my decision legally binding. At 10:30, the notary public stamped the final page with her official seal. The will was now valid under Ohio law. Thomas, what happens next? I'm required by law to send certified notification to Eric and Jessica within 30 days. They'll have the right to contest, but given your documentation of financial exploitation and their absence at Kate's funeral, any challenge would be unsuccessful. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. How long before they know? The letters will go out tomorrow. They'll receive them by Friday. At 2 that afternoon, I called Tyler from my kitchen phone. "Grandpa, how did it go?" "It's done, Tyler. You're my heir now." Silence on the other end. Then Grandpa. "I don't know what to say. I'll try to be worthy of this." "Tyler, you already are. You're here when it matters." "What about Dad and Aunt Jessica?" "They made their choices, Tyler. Now they'll live with the consequences." An hour later, Frank knocked on my back door. He'd changed out of his suit into his usual work clothes, but his expression remained serious. "Brian, you sure about this family's family, even when they disappoint you?" I poured us both coffee and sat across from him at Kate's kitchen table. "Frank, they took $180,000 and missed their mother's funeral. What more evidence do I need?" Frank stirred his coffee thoughtfully. 40 years I've known you, Brian. Never seen you make a decision lightly. If you say this is right, then it's right." "I appreciate that, Frank. I really do. Those kids of yours, they're going to be mighty upset when they find out. Let them be upset. Maybe it'll teach them something their mother and I failed to." That evening, after Frank left, I sat at my desk and wrote a letter to Kate. Not to mail, just to write. something I'd been doing since she died, a way of keeping her close. Kate, I did what you would have wanted. Protected what we built. Tyler understands what family means. He'll take care of this place, carry on our values. Eric and Jessica chose their paths long ago. Now they'll have to walk them without our money smoothing the way. I folded the letter and placed it in the box with all the others I'd written to her. Tomorrow, Thomas would send the notifications. By Friday, my children would know that their inheritance was gone. The real fight would begin then. But tonight, for the first time since Kate's funeral, I felt at peace. Friday morning at 10 o'clock, 2 certified letters were delivered to my children's workplaces. I knew because Thomas had called to confirm delivery. Eric received his at his law firm in Columbus. Jessica got hers at her real estate office in Toledo. By 11, both would know that their expected inheritance had vanished. I didn't have to wait long for the reaction. At 11:30, my phone exploded with Eric's fury. Dad, what the hell is this? You can't just cut us out. This has to be some kind of mistake. I'd been expecting this call, but the venom in my son's voice still caught me off guard. No mistake, Eric. It's exactly what it says. Dad, you're not thinking clearly. Grief can affect judgment. Let's talk about this reasonably. Reasonably, like missing your mother's funeral was reasonable. That was different. I had obligations. You know how important my career is. More important than your mother dying. Don't twist this around, Dad. Look, I understand you're upset about the funeral, but cutting us out completely, that's insane. I'm hiring a lawyer. This won't stand in court. Good luck with that, Eric. I've got 40 years of documentation showing exactly how you and Jessica have treated me. 45 minutes later, Jessica called, her voice thick with tears. Daddy, this has to be a mistake. We're your children. You can't just give everything to Tyler. Jessica, where were you when your mother was being buried? I explained about that I had work commitments. You know how demanding real estate is. You had a nail appointment and a baby shower. Those were important, Daddy. We love you. Money doesn't matter. Family matters. If family mattered, Jessica, you'd have been at your mother's funeral instead of getting your nails done. She hung up on me. At 1 o'clock, Eric called back, his voice cold and calculated. Dad, I've spoken with my attorney. This will is clearly the product of diminished capacity. We can have you declared incompetent. Try it, Eric. I've got military service records, 40 years of business ownership, and meticulous financial documentation. Good luck proving I'm incompetent. We'll see about that. The worst call came at 2:30. Stephanie, Eric's wife, didn't bother with pleasantries. You selfish old man. How dare you do this to us? We have children to think about. College tuitions, mortgages, responsibilities you clearly don't understand anymore. Stephanie, your husband, took $75,000 from me over 6 years and never paid back a dime. Then he missed his mother's funeral for a bachelor party in Vegas. That money was family helping family, and the Vegas trip was a work obligation. A work obligation he was gambling and drinking while his mother was being buried. You're a bitter, vindictive old man who can't see past his own selfishness. She slammed the phone down so hard it hurt my ear. By 4 o'clock, I was sitting at my kitchen table, hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline of 3 hours of family warfare. That's when Tyler knocked on my back door. Grandpa, I came as soon as I could get away from work. You okay? You look pale. I let him in and poured us both coffee. They got the letters today. I figured. Dad called me screaming about lawyers and incompetency hearings. Aunt Jessica left me 6 voicemails crying about family loyalty. What did you tell them? I told them they made their choices when they skipped Grandma's funeral for a bachelor party and a nail appointment. For the first time all day, I smiled. Tyler, don't let them bully you. You did the right thing just by being here. Grandpa, don't let them bully you either. You did the right thing. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. 2 generations of Carter men who understood what family really meant. Tyler, I said finally, they're coming tomorrow. Both of them. Together. That's never happened since your grandmother's funeral. Want me to be here? No, Tyler. This is something I need to handle myself. But knowing you support me, that means everything. Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, I heard car doors slam in my driveway. Eric and Jessica walked toward my front door together. The first time they'd been in the same place since Kate's funeral. I opened the door before they could knock. Dad, we need to talk, Eric said with forced warmth. I led them to the living room where the afternoon light streamed through windows, creating a peaceful atmosphere, a sharp contrast to the war about to unfold. This business has gotten out of hand. Eric began settling into Kate's favorite chair, cutting us out completely. That's not what Mom would have wanted. Don't tell me what your mother would have wanted, Eric. She documented every dollar you took from us. Jessica leaned forward, dabbing her eyes. Daddy, we love you. Money doesn't matter. Family matters. If family matters so much, Jessica, where were you when your mother was dying? I returned with my box of financial records and spread the documents across the coffee table like evidence in a courtroom. Bank statements, canceled checks. Loan agreements never honored. Eric showed me one business plan, one repayment schedule, $1 you ever paid back. Dad, you're being unreasonable. We're family. Family helps each other. Family shows up. You took $180,000 and couldn't show up for your mother's funeral. Those were investments, Dad. Business opportunities. Jessica stood up, pacing. We were busy, Daddy. Work is demanding. We had obligations. More important than your mother dying. More important than your father grieving alone. I've learned that real family isn't determined by blood, but by actions that show love. Do any of you agree with me? Do you think I did the right thing? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. At 4 o'clock, Tyler knocked on the back door. I signaled him to come in. Tyler, Jessica exclaimed with false brightness, maybe you can talk sense into your grandfather? Tyler looked at the financial documents, then at his father and aunt. What kind of sense, Aunt Jessica? This crazy will change. He's giving you everything. Tyler sat next to me, his face serious. Grandpa's right. I was there when Grandma died. I was at her funeral. You weren't. That says everything. Eric's face flushed red. Tyler, you don't understand adult responsibilities. Like gambling in Vegas while your mother was being buried. That was a bachelor party. I had obligations. And I had a nail appointment. Jessica added defensively. You can't just cancel these things. The silence was deafening. Even Jessica seemed to realize how pathetic that sounded. For 10 years you've treated me like a bank account with a heartbeat. Your mother kept records because she knew this day would come. Eric stood abruptly. This isn't over, old man. I'll see you in court. Good luck with that, Eric. I've got 40 years of documentation and a grandson who actually shows up. Jessica followed Eric toward the door, crying, Daddy, please. We're your children. No, I said quietly. Tyler's my family. You're just people who happen to share my DNA. They left without another word. Tyler and I sat in the sudden silence. Grandpa, are you okay? I'm better than okay, Tyler. For the first time in years, I know exactly where I stand. Monday morning at 9 o'clock, my phone rang with the news I'd been waiting for. Brian, it's Thomas. The 30-day contestation period expired at midnight. No legal challenges were filed. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It's over. It's official. Your will stands. Eric never filed a contest. Probably realized he couldn't win with all that evidence you had. At 10 o'clock, I drove to Thomas's office and collected the manila envelope that represented the end of my war with my children. The will was now uncontestable, protected by Ohio law and 40 years of documentation. Brian, you did the right thing, Thomas said. You protected what you and Kate built. From the law office, I drove to American Legion Post 247, where Frank Sullivan was having coffee with the usual crowd of veterans. Frank, it's done. The will stands. Frank grinned and slapped me on the back. Damn right it does. You did right, Brian. The other veterans gathered around as word spread. Bill Henderson, who'd served in Korea, shook my hand. Brian family's supposed to show up when it matters. Yours didn't. You made the right call. Tom Rodriguez, a Gulf War veteran, nodded in agreement. My kids know better than to take advantage of their old man. You taught yours a lesson they needed to learn. For the first time in months, I felt like I belonged somewhere again. These men understood what it meant to fight for something bigger than yourself. At 2 that afternoon, Tyler knocked on my back door. I could tell by his expression that he'd heard the news. Grandpa Dad called me this morning. He was furious that you won. How do you feel about it, Tyler? I feel like justice was served. He sat down at Kate's kitchen table. Grandpa, I promise I'll take care of everything you and Grandma built. This house, the memories, the values you taught me. Tyler, your grandmother would be proud. You understand what legacy really means? I want to learn everything. How to maintain the house, fix things when they break, take care of the garden. You've already proven you're the man I hoped you'd become. That evening I sat in Kate's garden as the sun set behind the maple trees. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves. For the first time since her death, I felt at peace. I looked at her photo on the garden bench beside me. Kate, our grandson, gets it. Our family line continues through him. A gentle breeze rustled the remaining leaves, and I chose to believe it was her way of saying she approved. As I was heading inside, Tyler appeared at the back gate. Grandpa, Will you teach me to fix that loose porch board tomorrow? I want to learn how to take care of this place properly. I smiled, feeling hope for the future. I'd be honored to teach you, Tyler. We'll start first thing in the morning. Tuesday morning, Tyler arrived at 7:30 with his toolbox ready to learn. We spent the morning replacing the loose porch board. I showed him how to measure twice and cut once, how to secure nails properly. His hands were young and willing. That's what mattered most. At noon, we ate sandwiches on the newly repaired porch, looking out at Kate's garden where the last roses were fading gracefully. Grandpa, thank you for trusting me with this. I won't let you down. Tyler, you already haven't. You showed up when it mattered. The afternoon passed, teaching him house maintenance, checking the foundation, cleaning gutters, maintaining the furnace. With each lesson, I saw Kate's values taking root in another generation. Why didn't Dad ever want to learn this? Tyler asked. Your father was always looking ahead to the next big thing. Sometimes the most important things are right in front of you. Evening found us in Kate's garden. Tyler studied my 40-year maintenance notebook, asking thoughtful questions about repairs and procedures. I'm going to take good care of everything you and Grandma built together. I watched this young man who understood what his father and aunt never had. Legacy isn't measured in dollars, but in values passed down. Kate, I thought our legacy is safe. Not in money, but in values. The sun set behind the maple trees. Tyler planned tomorrow's projects, winterizing the garden, checking the roof. For the first time since Kate's death, I felt complete peace. Tyler, hand me that hammer. Let's fix that loose step. Yes, sir, Grandpa. We've got work to do. I lost the love of my life, but through it all, God showed me something I had been too blind to see. Real love isn't in promises, it's in actions. Sitting in the garden Kate once cared for, I realized that God didn't take everything from me. He simply removed what no longer deserved to stay. And through Tyler, the grandson who truly understands family, God gave me a second chance to pass down what truly matters. Faith, loyalty, and love. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a true story about redemption, about how faith can heal a broken heart. A true story that every father and grandfather will understand deep down. A true story that belongs to the Grandpa Stories series, where old men like me learn that silence and faith often speak louder than anger. If you've ever faced disappointment from your own family, remember this. God never fails to reveal the truth, even when it hurts. These Grandpa Stories exist to remind us that the greatest inheritance isn't money, it's values, faith, and unconditional love. This is one of those Grandpa Stories meant to keep the fire of goodness alive in a world that often forgets it. If this touched your heart, leave a comment, share this video, and subscribe for more true stories that inspire, heal, and remind us what family really means.